This is something I had to learn as a mother. We came across this book several years ago, so I've had years to practice on it. But it's very easy to be distracted when you're a mother. You're washing the dishes or you're the floor or the clothes or something, and some child comes along and speaks to you and you don't really give them your eye contact. And so you're away with the fairies, you know, whatever it is, and they're talking to you. And really they say, you're not really listening to me. Isn't that true? You're not really listening to me. I remember feeling frustrated with the same with my parents too. You're not really listening to me. Why? Because we didn't stop what we were doing, sit down and look at them. They wanted us to look, we wanted them to look at us. Then we knew that we had their attention. So I've really been practicing this. When I'm talking to somebody, look them in the eyes. And while I'm doing that, they know that they've got my attention, and I know I don't always do it well, especially on Sundays. But to try and feed love in through eyes. Now the second thing, and this is very much connected with it, is what Ross Campbell calls focused attention. And that is giving 100% of your attention to the person. All right? They want that time with you and you alone, particularly your children. Each one of them wants to have time with you and you alone. Your husband wants to have time with you and you alone. And if you're always distracted by something else and you never sit down and give them total concentration and total attention, then they don't feel loved. You're always too busy doing something else, and they don't feel loved. And I know I do this on a Sunday. I'm a real bad example of this, because when someone's talking to me on a Sunday, I'm looking over here, you know, they're going out the door and I really want to see them before they go, you know. I've got people to see about over there, and I've got to keep my eye on in case they don't whisk out the door before I see them, and I'm sort of talking to somebody and I'm going like this all the time, you know, and people get so frustrated, and Liz, are you listening to me? And you can come in. So I've got to learn to, you know, give my total concentration, because that's what that person needs at that moment. So focused attention is the second one, all right? And the third one is physical contact. Got to mention it. And I have given whole talks on this, so I'm not going to go into a lot of it. I've got notes on it. Next copy of Above Rubies is going to have an article on it, and you can get notes on it if you want to. But it's actually Mum mentioned it last week in the marriage seminar, that we've all got thousands of millions of little tiny nerve centres on our skin that we need to be touched, and everybody has what they call skin hunger. Everybody needs to be touched. They don't all know that they need to be touched, but that's what they really do need, and that's another way of showing our love, by touching them. All right, so there's those three things: eye contact, focused attention, that's giving your total attention to them, and thirdly, physical contact. Okay, so it's all very well us giving all this love out to people, but unless they recognise that that's what we're doing and receive it, well then, of course, you know, it's just a bit of a one-way street, and that's why we're going to go into this tonight. It needs to be something that people recognise, and we need to recognise when other people are loving us. And all the time, I'm sure you realise this, but all the time when you're in contact with people, basically underneath, most people are thinking, how much do they love me? Isn't that true when we're in contact with somebody? It's not probably the most conscious thought, but unconsciously, right down deep, we're thinking, how much do they love me? How much does my mum really love me? How much does my husband really love me? How much do my kids really love me? How much does my friend at church really love me? So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and we need to know, when we're in contact with someone else, what do they want from me? What is it they're really wanting from me? When they say they don't feel I love them, what is it they're really wanting? What is their most important need? And what is it that I do that makes those walls come back up again? You know, when you're with somebody and suddenly that wall comes up, I call it a blind, you know, it comes down like this. So I hope you'll understand a little bit more about that tonight. Now let's have a look at our sheet. I've put it all in chart form here because I think it's the easiest way to understand it. First of all, there's a person who, when you're meeting their material needs, they feel loved. All right? And this is the way they gauge love, this certain sort of person, by how well and how quickly their needs are met. All right, do you understand that? I could give you a good example of this. With myself, this is basically one of the ways that I know if people love me, but I'm talking specifically about my beloved spouse. He knows about this. But if I make curtains, I've put my life and soul into those curtains, and I've sewed them all up, and they're ready to hang. And this has happened time and time again with every set of curtains I made. And they hang over the back of the lounge room couch, and they sit there day after day, night after night, day after day. And I really want Rob to hang them, you see. And after a while, I begin to feel really rejected. I think he just does not care about me. It becomes a real love thing. He doesn't. If he really cared about me, he would hang those curtains up. And because he's not hanging those curtains up, he does not care about me, therefore he does not love me. You see how it all works out? I mean, you could say, well, it's a bit irrational, really, Liz. I mean, he's showing love to you in other ways. But that's the way I want him to show love. And if he doesn't show it to me that way, then I think he doesn't care about me. So, of course, I'd turn on him. Not very nice. So, how to communicate love to this sort of person? Well, it's pretty obvious. Find out what is important to them and do it. Or else explain why you can't. Yeah, Rob would often have to say to me, well, love, you understand, I can't hang them yet because I've got to buy the rod and we haven't got enough money. Or else I can't hang it because I haven't got it in stock for the things that I need. Or I've just been too busy day after day and I just gone on and I just haven't had a chance. What chance have I had to hang them? But if it's a logical, rational reason, I can accept that, if it is. How to recognise when they are loving you. Now, this is from using my example. This is how Rob needs to recognise. He needs to look at me then and say, well, now if that's her language, she will be dealing love out to me on that same wavelength. Do you understand? So he'll be saying, now that's her. If that's what she wants from me, then that's what she'll be giving me. All right. So he'll know that I'm giving out love when I do these things. When I'm doing things for him, maybe working long hours. I mean, I'm up making curtains at 1 o'clock in the morning to make the house look nice. Well, that's my way of showing that I'm loving him. And this sort of person, this is me, has a strong association between gifts and services and love. Now, there's probably deep in the healing way back somewhere. From my parents, you know, terrible ogres that they were, that have given me this terrible blight on me. That means I demand love by getting things done for me. Do you all understand that? That makes sense, okay. Some of them are a bit more difficult than others. Now, this is another easy one. Saying it with words. Now, to some people, words are really important. This is what I've noticed, but to some people, other people, words are not important. This is the sort of person that words are important to. They gauge love by the way they're told. In other words, is it sincere? Is it genuine? When you say to them, I love you, do you really mean it? When they're told, is it an appropriate time? You know, no good saying, oh, I love you when you're wanting to get a job done. Okay, that's called what, Nathan?
What?
When
Conditional.
yeah.
Manipulation.
Yes, thanks, Greg. Manipulation. And how often they're told. Now, you see, this is the amazing thing, you know, men are really working out that women, at long last, that women need to be told lots. They really thought that if they told them when they married them, on the day that they married them, I promised to love you, that was it for life, finished, done. I've told you I loved you on our wedding day. You know I love you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. You know, that's it. But they're realising the woman needs a lot more than that. They need it regularly, all right? So how often they're told. Now, how do you communicate love to a person to whom words are really important? Well, first of all, make sure that your actions agree with your words. Like I said before, it's got to be sincere. It's not much good saying, I love you, and then treating them really roughly where it hurts. I know a guy whose mum used to say, I love you, and then she didn't carry it out by her actions in a way that he felt loved. And so he just couldn't accept the words I love you from anybody, and words just didn't have any value to that guy, not just I love you words, but other sorts of words, and he became very suspicious. You could see it coming because his mother had said I love you, he'd accepted that, but then he found out later on by other things that she didn't really love him. So when somebody said something to him, he was always suspicious of other people. See, I find that really hard to relate to because I believe what other people say. I think, yeah, they really mean it, and I say what I really mean. And so I'm on that wavelength, and with him I found it extremely difficult because when I said something, he was immediately suspicious of some motive behind what I was saying, you see. And yet I was just being genuine and open. And when he said something, he was really guarded because he just knew words didn't mean much to him. So it was a real problem there. So with this person, make sure your actions agree with your words. Don't use love words lightly. You understand what that means? Don't use love words as using them in manipulation. Now, this is a disastrous thing to say to a child. Tell mummy you love her, you know. It should come in. I'm not saying it's always disastrous, because it might be good while you're actually training a child. When you say to the child, I love you, now you could say back to mummy, you love mummy. I mean, that's different. But when you keep saying to the child when they get older and older, come on, tell mummy you love her, go on, say you love me, and you force them to say it, or particularly if you say to them, say you love grandmother, go on, go to grandma and say you love her. You know, this child has to say, I love you, grandma, yeah, but your breath stinks, you know, or something. You know what I mean, though? You're forcing them to express something that's not really coming from their heart. Yeah, it's false. And so you're teaching them that words don't mean anything, right? You're making them say it when they don't have the emotion to go with it. So as you know, as I said before, you don't have to feel anything for love. But I'm talking about a different thing here. You're actually forcing the child to say something when they don't. It's not coming from their heart. You can do it on paper. And don't use negative love words. In other words, don't say, I hate you, because to this person words are so important. When you say, I hate you, it just destroys them. Whereas to someone else it mightn't mean very much, because words aren't very important to them. Okay, how to recognise when this sort of person is loving you? Listen to what they say, because obviously if words are important, they're using love words too. Take their words at face value. Don't be suspicious, looking for hidden motives. Okay, you understand that one? Number 3, but by the way, saying it with words is often a sanguine trait that comes along there with the sanguine, the person who's really outgoing, talking a lot. Saying it with touch. They gauge love by warm, natural, outward display. And that's if they want to give love that way and you rebuff them, then they feel unloved. Now you can imagine under how to communicate love to them. If you're going to love them this way, your touch must be true and consistent. And to them, touch will say what words can't. I was just going to link that with the temperaments there. It says, with touch, the sanguine person and the melancholic are probably the most likely ones to use this language. The phlegmatic will hate it, hate being touched. But he needs it all the same, right? She needs it all the same. And the choleric will want to, but finds it hard, very, very hard to do, very hard to receive. Whereas the sanguine and melancholic will find it quite easy to give it and to receive it. We know how important touch is from what effect it has on people from a couple of examples that I'm sure most of you, they had it on television some time ago about the phone box. Do you remember that one with the teller and the bank teller and the phone box and the money and the touching? No, you don't? Do you want to hear it? It's a good story. It's true. They were experimenting and trying to see what touch really did mean to people, how significant touch was to people. And so they put, say, 20 cents, I don't remember how much it was, in a phone box. And then they waited for somebody to come in. And, of course, obviously they saw the 20 cents and took it and went out. And they did it repeatedly. And every time the person came out with the 20 cents in their possession, they'd say to them, excuse me, look, I'm sorry, but when I was in that phone box just before, I left 20 cents in there, and I've realised now that I've left it in there, and I was just wondering if you saw it and picked it up by any chance. And when they touched the person, when they said, excuse me, and said that to them, every single time they touched the person said, oh, yes, I did see that. Here, have it back. If they didn't touch the person, they hung on to the money and went off. Do you remember seeing that? Isn't it incredible? So it brought honesty, didn't it? What, Bruce? Wasn't that sort of touch? And another one was a bank teller. They had a girl who doing her usual job, but they told her to touch some people as she handed the bank book back. Not to say anything different or smile different or anything, but just to touch them. Just let her hand contact theirs as she handed the bank book back. Now, they had someone outside saying, and how did you like the service of the bank, you know? And the people would say, if they had been the ones who were touched, oh, she was a really good teller in there today. Isn't that amazing? The ones who were not touched said, oh, just same as usual. Incredible, isn't it? So, how to recognise these touchy sort of people, touchy in the other sense. They'll be openly expressive. Obviously, if they're going to try and love you, they'll be giving out love in an expressive way. And if they're doing that, don't be too critical or standoffish, because they'll get hurt. They find difficulty in expressing love other ways. And they find security and comfort in touch. Now, meeting emotional needs. This is most likely to be sanguine and melancholics again. The person who meets their emotional needs, who likes their love to be by having their emotional needs met, I should word it that way, are either the life of the party or very introverted. They're either one extreme or the other, or they could be a combination of both. They will judge love by how stable and consistent you are towards them, especially in their emotional extremes. Now, they're a person who has extremes emotionally, all right? They're very high one day, very low the next, and they want to know if you're going to keep on being loving and consistent towards them in both their extremes. And they know that you love them if you let them stay behind their protective walls. You know, emotional people like this are very easily hurt, and they put their walls up really quickly, and sometimes they don't want to break those walls down. They don't want to let you in, and so they're gauging their love. You know, do that person really love me? Are they going to let me stay behind my wall, or are they going to force me to break it down just when I'm not ready? Okay, do you understand that? And they will, if people live up to their expectations, they tend to put a lot of expectations on people, this sort of person, and if you live up to their expectations, they know that you love them. Of course, it's very hard to live up to their expectations. And if they find that their needs aren't being met in this area, they'll give out very unreasonable behaviour, and you will be very tempted to call them Harry. You know about Harry, don't you? No. Yeah. No, Harry is short for Harry Vaulting. Have you ever heard of that? No. Well, we were having an incident at our meal table one day, very, very many years ago, when our children were very little, and one of our friends was there, and they said, "Oh, I should call you Harry," you know, and this little voice said, "Why do you want to call me Harry?" He said, "Because you're Harry Vaulting." Stands for Harry Vaulting. I thought it was quite good. How to communicate love to them? Well, you need to provide stability, security, self-esteem. Build ladders over their walls, okay, when they put their walls up, but let them operate them. In other words, when they're ready for you to come behind their walls, you're ready to receive them, but don't force them to pull down their walls. And you might know that story about the wind and the sun. There's a guy walking along, have you heard this example, with a coat on, and the wind tries to get the coat off him. The wind says to the sun, "I'll get the coat off him. You see, I'll get it off." And the sun says, "No, I can get it off." And the wind said, "Come on, I'll show you how. I'll try and get it off." And so he blew really hard. You can all blow really hard. If I was a school teacher, I'd say, "Well, you all blow hard, boys and girls. That's right. You try and blow the coat off." And what happens when you blow hard? Oh, that's enough. Thank you, Greg. You always have the kid up the back who does that. When the wind was blowing, he grabbed the coat really tight and held on to it, right? And the more the wind tried to blow the coat off, the more he held on to it. Didn't get it off at all. But then along came the sun. The sun said, "I'll show you, wind. I'll get the coat off him." And the sun just it just shed its warmth and its light and its love. And the guy felt secure and warm and content, and so he naturally took his coat off. And that's the way it is with people like this. We need to treat them gently and just let them, when they're ready, to let us behind their walls. I could talk lots about that, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. Okay, when they're trying to love you, they'll put expectations on you. Don't you worry about it. And if you don't quite live up to their expectations, they'll get very hurt and resentful and easily upset. So they're people you really got to watch out for, because they're easy to upset. Now, there are other people who, their type of love, the way that they really know love, is if you spend time with them. These are an easy sort of people. Fortunately, I'm married to one like this. All he wants is for me to be there. Isn't that lovely? On call. It's not always so lovely. And showing an interest in what they're doing. Now, this is a really interesting example I can give you here. I'm sure you'll understand really when I start talking about this. There's a husband who is out earning money, and he's out not just from 9 to 5, but he works overtime, and sometimes he's out on Saturdays too, and maybe even Sundays, and he works long hours bringing money home. Now, in his mind, he is thinking, I am loving my wife, I'm working long hours for her, and I'm bringing her home lots of money so she can live on a higher level and have all the things that she wants. That's how I'm showing my love to her. Now the wife is sitting at home and thinking, if my husband loved me, he would come home earlier. He would spend more time at home. I'm deprived because my husband's not home with me. And she is feeling unloved. Now you can see that they are expressing two different languages. She's saying, if only he was home here, I would feel loved. He is saying, I am providing lots of money for her, that's how I'm showing my love. But she's not receiving it because she's not on the same wavelength as he is. That happens in a lot of families, that particular instance, but there are others that you can see. Now what they need to do is communicate, of course, get together on it. Okay, so when you communicate to this sort of person, you do things with them, you're there. Quality and quantity are both important. Be present emotionally and listen to them. If they're trying to love you, they'll be tagging along, wanting to be included, and they're involved and interested in you. And then we've got helping. And they know that they're loved if they're accepted as one of the team. If you want to communicate love to them, you give them caring help with insight when you're needed, but don't take over. And how to recognise when they're loving you. They come alongside of you in time of need. They are willing to share your load and goal without taking the initiative from you. I'm not spending so much time on these ones because they're not perhaps as common. Bringing out the best. This is an interesting one. You can see there are some people that you get with and they bring out the best in you. Is that right? When you're with them, they just bring you up into a high level. Now they know if they're being loved, if they're praised and appreciated. If people are prepared to help them bring out and develop their best. If people are willing to spend time and effort for long-term results. Praise them. Pray for things important for them, to them. Help them to succeed and develop them to the fullest. Can you put on pause for a minute? It's on.
If you'd like to look this way. The example I often use with ways of loving is the fact that if you can imagine that you're a radio transmitter and the other person is a radio receiver, that if you're not transmitting on the same frequency as they won't hear your message no matter how hard you transmit. They'll never hear your message. And so we've got to, if we're the stronger ones, if we consider ourselves to be strong in the Lord and the power of His might, then it's up to us to find out what frequency, if you like to call it that, the other person is transmitting on, so that we can learn to recognise their love and reciprocate, give the love back to them on the same frequency. But interestingly enough, some people, whilst they may transmit love on one frequency, they may not receive on the same frequency. They may transmit on, say, for instance, the saying it with touch, but they may receive by wanting to help or be helped. And so we've got to be very perceptive if we're going to be able to really understand people. People are not, you just can't put them in little boxes and say, well, I know what you are because that's the way you do it. We had a lady who her way of showing love was doing things for other people, and yet when somebody tried to do something for her, in response, she reacted violently because she sort of felt that people were trying to repay her for her love, and she didn't want to be paid for her love. She wanted to be received, because the way she was, and so we were able to learn to help her, and we were able to meet her emotional needs, was the way that she was really needing to be loved. And because we were able to meet her emotional needs, we then found that she became free.
Okay. How to recognise when a person of this type of wavelength, the radio transmitter frequency, is trying to speak to you. Be prepared to receive advice. Hear when it is offered gently, but not pressed on you to help you reach your potential. They don't give up on you. This sort of person won't give up on you. So the emotional one will, of course. You know, he will tend to wipe you if you don't live up to what he expects from you. But this one won't give up on you. Being on the same side's the last one. There could be others, mind you, but these are the 8 that we picked out. Actually, they're from a book. We should really acknowledge the source that we got this from. Is a guy called Sweetheart, would you believe, writing on love, Swihiart, and the name of the book was right, which we have got for loan, but really this is the basic of it. Yes, dear. Can you put the camera on someone else?
The last 2, I would venture to say, are more mature styles of love.
I object to that.
And in the sense that they don't, whilst they may be different in their application, yet they seem to gather all the others up and be more mature stance than the other 6. So whether they're just different or whether they're more mature, I don't really know, but it seems to me that they appear to have the other person's interest at heart perhaps more readily than perhaps the first 6.
They gauge love by somebody who's on the same side when people stand by them in a crisis and don't shoot them down in public. Don't know whether you've ever had that done to you, but it's just disastrous, isn't it? Somebody who you really think's your friend says, "Oh yes, you are like that." I've really noticed that, and suddenly, in front of everybody, it all comes out. Yes. How to communicate love to this sort of person. Defend their right to express themselves. That's really important to them. Encourage them in what they do or say. Identify with them physically and verbally. Don't criticise them in public. Try to see it through their eyes. If you have to point out their weaknesses, do it gently, because they won't hear you if you're not on their side, you see. They just shut off. If a certain person who on this wavelength is trying to love you, you'll know it, because they will defend you, give you genuine advice. Just want to show you a picture here, because I've got a picture of somebody receiving advice here. And I just don't know whether you'll recognise him. Perhaps you'll want it to come in up and close. Can you see who that is getting advice? Can you recognise the person? I'll show you.
Recognise the giver, but not the getter.
No, the one who's getting it. Who's this? No, it's not anybody. Who's this? The one who's getting the advice. Can you tell?
I know.
Yeah, it's Rob.
Yeah, I knew it was Rob.
Oh, it was cute.
The ticket goes really well.
The legs give it away. Okay, be mature enough to listen if you are getting advice. When they encourage you in spite of your mistakes, that's when you know that they're trying to love you that way. That's their way of showing love. When they accept you as you are. My kids, when we were leaving Richmond and coming out here, and various folk were deciding whether they were going to come to Richmond or come to Burwood or stay at Richmond, just praying about it and seeing what the Lord wanted them to do. The kids said to me, "Is Jim coming? Valma and Jim coming to Burwood?" And I said, "Oh yes, they are coming." And they immediately said, "Oh, we like Jim because he talks to us like we're people and not kids." You see, he was showing his love by being on their side, just accepting them as they are and encouraging them just as they are. And I've remembered that, you know, as the years go by. That was 4 years ago. The children were a lot younger. If people take an interest in you, well, then they're trying to love you in this way. Now, just one way that might help you to understand this is meeting material needs is probably one that's pretty common with us, because we give gifts to each other, and that's sort of a fairly common way of showing love, isn't it? I know there are several people who will give me something, and that's their way of saying I love you. Though they might never say verbally I love you. They might never, physically touch me. They may not meet my emotional needs. They may not even be on the same side as me in a conversation or something like that. But they will give me things, and that's their way of saying I love you. And I accept that. I said that is their language, I think, to myself, of saying I love you. Now, I'm not ever going to say, but they never say they love me, so they mustn't love me, Or they never put their arm around me, so they mustn't love me. Because they've got this other way of showing it. They give me things. And some people expect presents, Have you ever met anyone like that who expects presents? If you don't have it spot on for their birthday, they feel unloved. You know people like that? Pardon?
Why would you doorbell with your elbow? Bring a present, aren't you?
Bring the doorbell with your
Bring the
elbow
doorbell
when
with
you
your elbow.
Oh, is that what they say? What, next Wednesday? Yes, well, this is my birthday next Wednesday, and I like presents. But, but
Creamy, she likes them.
I know there are other people who, who just expect a present when it's their birthday. If they don't get a gift, they feel unloved. Isn't that true? Other people don't care. Like my dad, I gave him, it was his birthday just a month ago, and I gave him a card, and then later on when I had time, went out and got a present and gave it to him, and he said, but you've given me something for my birthday. I said, well, it was just a card. He said, that's it, that's all I want, that's my birthday, I got a card. And he really means that. But my mother's not the same. She's just different, and with her it's important that I remember her birthday and give her a gift. Fair enough, I accept both of them. They've both got different ways. My dad says, he says, I know you love me, and he said, he just, a gift just doesn't mean that I love him. I'll give it to him still, but it's not doing anything to him, feeding him love. My way of showing him love is to give him a cuddle. That's what he likes better. And so you've just got to find out what does that other person like? How do they want to receive their love? And you've got to really ask the Lord and say, well, how can I show love to that person? That they don't want me to cuddle them, they don't want me to give them a gift, they don't want me to say I love you. What is it that they want? If it's not any one of those ones. So we need to. I know there's people who do things for other people, to show love, and they might never put their arm around you or say I love you, but they'll do things for you, and that's just great, isn't it? When somebody will do something, I'll fix that for you, I'll do that. It's their way of saying love. There was in this book a questionnaire, which I'm not going to give out to you, but I'm going to read just a couple of questions on it because it might help you to understand. But the thing that they were saying, and this is, if you finish the sentence has only got half of it there, and you have to finish it with your own experience. And they suggest really that you should do this, and your husband, but you won't worry about that tonight. But if you finish the sentence, it will be significant in the way of finding out how you gauge love, all right? What your love, how you accept love from others, how you recognise love from other people. Now here's one, I'll give it to you. During childhood, I knew that my parents loved me because they... Now however you answer that, or finish that sentence, that will show the way that you knew that you were being loved, the way that you recognise love. Now some people would say, well, during childhood, I knew my parents loved me because they hugged me a lot, and they received that love, that was on their wavelength, and they got it, and they knew that they were loved. Some people will say, well, I knew my parents loved me because they gave me lots of gifts, or I knew my parents loved me because they were there, my mum was always there when I came home from school. There's all these different things. Now some people might say, well, I don't think my parents loved me anyway, because the sort of love that they were needing wasn't there at the time when they wanted it. So they felt unloved.
The first question a lot of kids ask when they come home from school is, where's mum? They need to know that mum's there, so they know that love.
Here's another one. During our courtship, 3 of the characteristics that attracted me to my husband or wife were... For when down and in need of support, it was his money, but I didn't have any. Married under false pretenses. When down and in need of support, I like my friends to... What is it that you like them to do? To give you a gift, send you flowers, give you a phone call, put their arm around you. What is it? That'll be a good way of finding out what sort of love you like to receive. One thing that my husband, wife, friend, mother, father contributed to our relationship, enriching it, is such and such. This is an interesting one. It hurts my feelings most when my husband, wife, friend, mother, father, whatever you like to put in here, does not what? Now some of you say, well, it hurts my feelings most when he doesn't say he loves me. Or it hurts my feelings most when he doesn't hang up the curtains. Or it hurts my feelings most when he doesn't remember my birthday. You know, what is it that will help you to remember? Because I've got a better example than the curtains. It hurts my feelings most when my husband does not finish the skirting board in the lounge room upstairs. I feel a sense of acceptance and worth when my husband, that's the next one, puts the skirting boards upstairs. You know why I bother. I've been waiting 3 months. The nicest gift I ever received from my husband and wife was when, that may not be actually a gift in the sense of something material, but when what? When they said they loved me or when they whatever. Here's an interesting one. I feel God loves me because... So we can put the same thing on God too. This is what they suggest. Once you have finished, each of you should mark beside each response the number of the like we had here, the 8 different things, which best describes that response. Now you'll notice that coming up on that question, you say you numbered those things there. Meeting material needs was number 1, and being on the same side was number 8. Say you'd numbered them all down. Now you'd notice as you went through there was 21 questions. I only read a couple of them, but you'd probably come up, you know, number 7, number 7, number 7, number 7, number 6, 6, 7, 7, 6, and it would come out that most common one, and then you would see that was the one that you really spoke most and received most from others. And then of course the idea is you get your husband to mark it too, and you find out what he is, and then yes, marriage is solved. Easy, no. Has anybody got any questions?